Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, you are going to hear opinions. And while the podcast is endorsed by Uriah Heep, the opinions of the host and various guests do not necessarily represent the opinions of the band or any of the members past or present. With that being said, let's celebrate the music of Uriah Heep. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am happy to bring you this podcast that is endorsed by Uriah Heep. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Mick Box. And we have a song to go over today. This is the first bonus track from the album Firefly, and it's called Crime of Passion. And, it's weird to think about in terms of how things are done now, where bands typically go into the studio and they just try and get enough to fill a CD or come close to filling a CD. But back then, before we had CDs, we had albums, cassettes, and 8-tracks. And you just recorded 8, 9, 10 songs, and that was your album. You weren't trying to stuff every available moment with music. And so I think about it, and I think, I went to get this album. There were only 8 songs on it. And I was like, wow, when it was over, it seemed to be over so fast. I wish there was more. But this is the way that things were done back then. So when you're reviewing stuff decades later, it's kind of weird to put in perspective as things have changed so much, exactly how things were done then. So Firefly only had 8 tracks on it. We've covered all of those. So now we're into the bonus tracks. And this song, Crime of Passion, was released, but it was released as the B-side single to Wise Man in some countries, and in other countries, it was the B-side to the Sympathy single. And for those of you who don't remember singles, we used to have these miniature versions of records called 45s because they played at 45 rotations per minute. And they were smaller. You had to have this little attachment because for some reason, and I never quite understood why this happened, but they used to have this little plastic bit that you would have to stick in the middle of the hole of the 45 so that it would sit properly on your stereo. Why they just didn't make the hole the same size as the LP, I have no idea. I can only imagine it was like a cost thing. Hey, we're going to be producing billions of these 45s. We can save 0.003 cents per each one if we make the hole bigger, and then people can go elsewhere and buy this plastic bit that you stick in the middle. And it was a fairly efficient thing, but it was like anytime you wanted to, listen to a 45, you're like, where's the plastic thing? And, you'd have to search around the cabinet or whatever for it. It was never in a convenient spot. Even if you're like, okay, I'm just going to leave it right here, somehow it would vanish because it's a small thing and it's going to vanish. But in any case, that was a weird tangent. But in any case, that was the situation with this one. So it never appeared on the actual album. I'm glad they included it in the deluxe version. Of course they would. And here is a little bit of Crime of Passion. I like when a band has a great drummer and every once in a while they just have him start the song. And Lee does these really interesting beats where you're kind of like, he's going to do something crazy and then the music's going to start, but he just keeps it very simple. Love the kick drum on this. There's a couple of parts that just fit really nicely in there, but it's really kind of like, it's such a different and odd pattern for a rock drummer to play, but it's something that's very cool. He seems to be able to really pinpoint how to take something basic and just add a lot of flavor to it. He's really good at that. And this intro is a perfect representation of that kind of skill. Well, there's some really cool bass work in there from Trevor Boulder. I really like what he's playing during the basic beat. That slide, a beat after I would have expected it, is really nice. It's very tasteful, and I like the way he's going up in the register a little bit. It's almost like as the album has progressed, and I know that they don't record the songs necessarily in the order they're going to go on the album, but as the album has progressed, his playing has gotten really a lot better and more interesting. He's been solid the whole time, but now he's kind of playing up to that. This is how you play bass in Uriah Heep. Whereas the first songs, he was really just more of playing the root note with a little bit of color. So it's really nice to see he's kind of getting to that point now where I would think a bass player would be coming into the band. That's nice, a nice progression there for him. But again, what the drums are playing is great. We have, again, that sort of, I can't let the intro go without me singing something style that John Lawton has brought to this album. I don't know if that continues really into the next couple albums, but certainly interesting how he's just got to throw a few words in there. But it's kind of, it's kind of become tradition, I guess, for this one at least. But, the guitars sound great. They're blended in really nicely. Just a nice, strong song so far. It's, for not something that's, for something that's not really up tempo, it does have a lot of power, doesn't it? Yeah, I did mention the organ earlier, but it's nice to have a return to the B3 with the Leslies whirling around, and that distortion on it sounds really, really good and powerful. That's bringing out a lot of the power in the song as well. That coupled with the distorted guitars and that. But really strong offering. I really like the vocal line. The beat is still pretty interesting, and it's definitely keeping me engaged. A lot of nice and smooth transitions from one part to another. It just feels so seamless and natural. And that's one thing I really like about this song. I also really like that guitar riff there. I think there's so much that you could do with that. I mean, even if you added like a second or a third harmony to that, could be very cool. But it's just solid, and it leaves a lot of room for things you could play with. It's very subtle and in the left ear, but you can hear their the rhythm guitar is just playing along nicely. And then when it doesn't need to play, during the space that it's supposed to leave, it actually does keep playing. It just mutes the strings and just kind of picks at them a little bit, or strums on them a little bit, to just kind of keep that rhythm going. And that's really nice. It's like it's subtle and you can feel it more than you hear it. Boy, they've really taken it up a couple of notches here, haven't they? And you don't need tempo to bring the intensity. You know, the tempo is exactly the same, but they've added another guitar in, one that they're playing in the lower registers. Then you've got the string pad that comes in that adds a lot more high end to it and just makes it a lot more epic and intense feeling. And it really changes the direction of the song, but yet very subtle changes have actually been made to cause that. Yeah, I'd love to hear, and maybe this is sadistic, but I'd love to hear John Lawton sing something just kind of like straight or monotone almost, you know, where he doesn't put any inflection into it, and just see what that would be like, because everything we've heard from him so far, he just puts so much into every song, every line of every song. And I love that. There's so much there, so much power and talent, you know, it's really just incredible. But that string definitely is a synthesizer. It definitely has the markings of a synth and not like an actual string section. But it sounds really good. I think I want to say it has the slightest touch of flange to it, or chorus maybe as well, which is not uncommon with a synth patch like that. But either way, it just sounds fantastic. Drums are solid, bass is interesting, guitars are solid. Just a fantastic song all the way around. And I'm glad they at least released it as a B-side so people could experience it. Didn't have to wait until 2004, whenever this came out on the bonus CD edition, or the deluxe CD edition, I should say. But yeah, great song by a great band. So what else can you say, you know? But that's it for today's show, guys. We will be back tomorrow to end the week with another bonus track from Firefly. In the meantime, have a great night and cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!